In Northern Virginia, tucked away in the quiet suburbs of Fairfax County, there's an old railway overpass that locals refuse to visit after dark. They call it Bunnyman Bridge. For decades, drivers have reported seeing a strange, towering figure dressed in a tattered bunny suit, sometimes carrying an axe. They've heard metallic scraping sounds beneath their cars and the chilling echo of axe blows in the surrounding woods. Some even claim to have found bloodstains on the concrete railing the next morning. Most people dismiss it as just another ghost story, a piece of local folklore to scare teenagers. But what if I told you that part of this legend is absolutely true? What if real police reports from the 1970s document not a ghost, but a very real, very angry man in a bunny suit terrorizing people with an axe? Today, we're going to separate fact from fiction, dig into the actual police files, and uncover the terrifying true events that spawned one of America's most enduring urban legends. This isn't just a story. It's a mystery that begins with a single bizarre incident and spirals into decades of fear, sightings, and a legend that refuses to die. To understand the Bunny Man, we have to go back to October 1970. The story doesn't begin with a haunted bridge, but with a couple parked in a car on a quiet road. It was late on a Saturday night when Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée were sitting in their vehicle near Guinea Road in Burke, Virginia. Suddenly, their idyllic evening was shattered. A figure appeared in their rear-view mirror, screaming at them to get off his private property. Bennett watched in horror as the man threw a hatchet, smashing through the passenger side window, narrowly missing his fiancée's head. As the terrified couple sped away, they got a clear look at their attacker. He was wearing a gray and white suit with long ears, a bunny suit. They drove straight to the police station to file a report. The Fairfax County Police took it seriously, launching an investigation for a man described as wearing a white bunny rabbit costume. This was the first documented attack. It was real, it was violent, and it was just the beginning. The Bunny Man had made his first appearance, not as a phantom, but as a flesh-and-blood assailant. Just 10 days later, the Bunny Man struck again. This time, the target was a private security guard named Paul Phillips. He was patrolling a new, unoccupied housing development near the same area. As he approached an unfinished house, he saw a man standing on the front porch. He was about 5'8", maybe 160 pounds, and he was methodically chopping at a porch post with a long-handled axe. And yes, he was wearing a bunny suit. Phillips confronted the man who stopped chopping, stared at him, and said, "You are trespassing. If you come any closer, I'll chop your head off." Phillips, wisely, retreated to his car to call the police, but by the time they arrived, the axe-wielding bunny had vanished into the woods, leaving behind nothing but a half-chopped porch railing. The police now had two credible reports from multiple witnesses, describing a man in a bunny costume committing acts of vandalism and threatening violence with an axe. The local newspapers picked up the story, and the Bunny Man officially became a local sensation. The police conducted a thorough search, but they never found the suspect. No arrests were ever made. After these two incidents, the real-life Bunny Man disappeared as mysteriously as he had arrived. So where did the ghost story come from? The attacks of 1970 were real, but they didn't happen at the infamous bridge. The location of the actual attacks was several miles away from what we now call Bunnyman Bridge. The legend as we know it today is a mashup of these real events and a completely separate, much darker local tale. This is where the story of the asylum comes in. The legend says that in the early 1900s, a nearby asylum for the criminally insane was shut down. During the transfer of patients to a new facility, one of the transport buses crashed. Most of the inmates were rounded up, but two, Douglas Griffin and Marcus Walster, escaped into the woods. A search party found a trail of half-eaten, mutilated rabbits, and eventually they found one of the escapees, Marcus, hanging from the railway bridge. A note was attached to his foot that simply read, "You'll never find me no matter how hard you try." Signed, the Bunny Man. Griffin, the supposed Bunny Man, was never found. The legend claims he took shelter under the bridge, living off wild rabbits and murdering anyone who got too close. It's a terrifying story, but here's the catch. It's almost entirely fabricated. Historians and researchers have scoured public records. There was never an asylum in that part of Fairfax County. There was never a prison bus crash. There are no records of escaped inmates named Douglas Griffin or Marcus Walster. The entire asylum backstory, the core of the ghost legend, appears to have been invented years after the 1970 incidents. It seems that over time, the real, documented story of the axe-wielding man in a bunny suit merged with this fictional, more gruesome tale. The location shifted to the more atmospheric and isolated Colchester overpass, a perfect setting for a ghost story. The real events provided the costume and the weapon. The fabricated asylum story provided the motive and the tragic, ghostly origin. The Bunnyman legend was born from a perfect storm of a real, bizarre crime spree, and the power of local folklore to warp and expand a story until it becomes something far more menacing than the truth. So, if the ghost story is fake, why do people still report experiences at Bunnyman Bridge today? The power of suggestion is incredibly strong. Once a place gets a reputation for being haunted, every strange noise, every shadow, every feeling of unease gets attributed to the legend. The Colchester Overpass is a single-lane tunnel under a working train track. It's dark, it's narrow, and it has an undeniable echo. When a train rumbles overhead, the sound and vibration can be unsettling. The wind whistling through the tunnel can sound like whispers. It's the perfect environment for your mind to play tricks on you. For decades, teenagers have dared each other to go to the bridge late at night, calling out the Bunnyman's name. It's become a rite of passage. People go there expecting to be scared, so they interpret every mundane event as something paranormal. They hear a branch snap and think it's an axe. They see the reflection of their own headlights and think it's ghostly eyes. The legend has become a self-fulfilling prophecy. But even with all that logical explanation, some of the stories are harder to dismiss. Over the years, paranormal investigators and amateur ghost hunters have flocked to the bridge, armed with cameras and audio recorders. Many have walked away with nothing but a few spooky photos of dust orbs. But some have captured things that are more difficult to explain. There are dozens of accounts of people hearing disembodied footsteps on the gravel around the bridge when no one is there. Others have recorded clear EVP's electronic voice phenomena of whispers that seem to say, "Get out or leave." One of the most common reports is the sound of metal scraping against metal, as if an axe is being dragged along the guardrail, even when the bridge is completely empty. And then there are the visual sightings. People claim to see a tall, shadowy figure darting between the T-edge of the woods or a fleeting shape in their rearview mirror as they drive through the tunnel. Are these all just tricks of the light and products of an overactive imagination? Maybe, but the sheer volume and consistency of these reports from different people over many years is what keeps the legend alive. The final piece of the puzzle, and perhaps the most chilling, is an eyewitness account that has never been officially verified but has become a cornerstone of the modern legend. This story reportedly comes from a young woman who, in the late 1990s, decided to test the legend with her boyfriend. They drove to the bridge late one night and parked directly under the overpass. Joking, they started calling out the Bunnyman's name. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then they heard a loud bang on the roof of their car. They thought it was a rock or a branch. Suddenly, the car began to shake violently, as if someone was jumping on the trunk. Terrified, they sped away. When they got home and checked the car, they found something horrifying. There were several deep, long scratches down the trunk and a large dent on the roof. But that wasn't the worst part. Wedged under their rear windshield wiper was a small, crudely made figure woven from straw and twigs. It was the shape of a bunny. They never filed a police report, afraid of being ridiculed. The story was only shared among friends, but it spread like wildfire, adding a terrifying new element to the legend. It suggested the Bunnyman wasn't just a passive ghost, but an entity that could physically interact with and terrorize those who dared to mock him. So what is the Bunnyman? Is he the ghost of a non-existent asylum escapee? Is he the lingering spirit of the real, unidentified attacker from 1970, forever bound to his strange persona? Or is the haunting just a powerful cultural memory? A story so ingrained in the local consciousness that the bridge itself has absorbed the fear and projects it back onto visitors? The truth is, we don't know. The police files confirm a real man in a bunny suit with an axe once roamed these woods. Folklore and imagination did the rest, creating a phantom that has outlived the real person. The Bunny Man legend teaches us a powerful lesson about how fear works. It shows how a single, strange, true event can be twisted and magnified by storytellers until it becomes an immortal monster. The real man from 1970 was likely just a troubled individual, his motives lost to time. But the legend he inspired, that will likely haunt Bunny Man Bridge forever, waiting under the overpass for the next car to stop, for the next teenager to whisper his name into the darkness. A legend only needs one witness to survive, and for over 50 years, the Bunny Man has had thousands. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into one of America's weirdest urban legends. What do you think is the truth behind the Bunny Man? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoy unraveling dark mysteries and spooky stories, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next investigation. Stay safe out there,